Casey Israel again, and today we're going to talk about wrestling. And today we're going to talk about the most recent episode of Tales from the Territory. This one is about Calgary Stampede that Stu Hart owned and ran for years. And on the show, we had Abdullah the Butcher. You had Bret Hart, big Q for that one, and Dr. D, and another person. Don't remember. I remember it's like no class, like something. I don't know. This guy must have just been a wrestler for Stampede, but I did love all the Stu Hart stories, especially like the ones where Dr. D is scared of going down in the dungeon and Stu Hart's trying to get him to put him in the holds, but Dr. D was smart enough not to fall for it, but he figured, hey, let's see if he would do it to my wife. And yeah, he did it to his wife. And I really enjoyed the story about Bret Hart down to the dungeon doing laundry while Stu Hart was stretching Jim Neinhart. And he said he was by the time he went down to get his clothes out of the dryer, both Stu Hart and Jim Neinhart was still in the same position for 4 hours, while Stu Hart just stretching them. I mean, I seen like the Shadows. Was it a wrestling in Shadows? Shadows. The documentary about Bret Hart that was just happened to during the screw job, the Montreal screw job, and you could they'll bring Stu Hart brought down some college people, one dude from America, you know, and he was stretching this Canadian wrestler that kind of looks like was it Pyle Gomer from in Full Metal Jacket. That's what this dude looked like, who Stu Hart was stretching, and the guy was like screaming, and Stu Hart's like, look at his lips turning blue. You gotta love his. People love to imitate him. He has definitely a interesting accent, very intimidating accent too. But the guy would be in his 50s or 60s, and he'd be stretching people for hours. They were saying they had people who was in amateur wrestling coaches that would go down to the dungeon and they would talk shit to Stu Hart, and Stu Hart was, bullshitting them, biting his lip. So when he hook them and stretch them, they learned to respect Stu Hart. And you know what? He grew up, he had a bunch of kids that were great athletes. I mean, you could point at two obviously ones. You got Bret Hart and Owen Hart. I was not ever a big Owen Hart fan, but I'm starting to learn to like Owen Hart, especially with the ribs, the legendary ribs, especially the ones that Bret Hart would talk about. Where, oh God, I remember the story about Owen Hart was pranking his dad. He loves to screw with his dad. He did the one where he was at a hotel calling Stu Hart. I think this is like during WrestleMania time, and Reggie Parks, the guy who was making belts, and I guess Owen Hart was acting as Reggie Parks, and really riling up Stu Hart, and to the point where it was like telling him, if you want to mess with me, I'll show you, like, I'll let's wrestle or something. I'll show you. And then Bret Hart was just watching him losing it, and then uh, then Stu Hart would just hang the phone up, and he would say, "Damn, Owen, he got me again." Oh God, I love those stories. Those Hart stories were great. Um, they didn't really get into a lot of the uh, stories about Calgary Stampede. They did show this one guy that he was part of the WWE documentary of the Hearts DVD, and this guy is like talking about he was got like really, he gets really intense and get veins in his neck doing these crazy promos, and he was talking to Bret Hart saying, "Your daddy Hart is not gonna be there." So that's the guy who I imagine. I remembered that clip from one of the documentaries, but they were talking about how Abdullah the Butcher was like their golden goose. I mean, it's amazing how long Abdullah the Butcher was in the business, where he's bringing up a story, and Bret Hart says, like Abdullah, he's like, "You remember this when we were at the bar?" And Bret Hart's like, "I was in 6th grade at the time," and it was hilarious. But that's how you know how long Abdullah was in the wrestling business. I'm still not a big fan of Abdullah being in the Hall of Fame. I'm kind of learning to live with it a little bit more. I'd rather him be in the Hall of Fame, and then someone like Drew Carey. Drew Carey, Mr. T, Snoop Dogg. I think Bob Barker's in there, but I would allow Bob Barker, and Pete Rose. But some of these other ones, no. But I know Billy Graham, superstar Billy Graham, wanted to be out of the Hall of Fame because of Abdullah the Butcher. And granted, he was never in the WWF at all. He was only in WCW that recognized him a little bit, But yeah, he was in territories as well. That's why he's in the series. But and he's very bloodlusting. So I was like, it was shocking that they put him in the Hall of Fame, but I'm okay with him. I'd rather him be in there than, to me, Carlos Colon should not be in there, because he's somewhat tied into the murder of Bruiser Brody. So, to me, I think that guy should not be in the Hall of Fame. But I don't get a vote in that. But he was talking about he had to keep everything pretty much kayfabe at all time. That they wanted to make him really seem like he's a foreigner from the Sudan. So anytime like he goes to eat at a restaurant, he will say egg, kind of fake it, and then bacon to the waitress. And then at one point, the waitress is like, "I won't tell anything to anyone, Abby, but I know you can talk." Maybe she didn't really know. She just getting sick of had to play along. But at that time, you had to do that. And it's still kind of like that today. But, yeah, I really enjoyed the Butcher stories. I really enjoyed the Bret Hart stories. Andre the Giant story was really good, where both Bret Hart and Smith Hart was driving him to Andre the Giant to the airport, while Smith Hart was driving like a madman to the point where Andre groaned, were making a huge turn. And I don't blame him being mad with someone driving like a maniac. But he was mad at Andre was mad at obviously Smith Hart, the one who was driving. Andre was mad at Bret Hart, who was a passenger. That's my dog. But also with God, yeah, he was mad at Stu Hart. He said after that happened, Andre never talked to Stu Hart again. But I mean, Bret Hart and Andre was in the WWF together. He said even that then he was not. He didn't. He still was holding the grudge. But it took years for him to loosen up and been friends with Andre. But it sucks that he was able to do it for himself, but he couldn't do it with his father, with Andre. And then there was another point of this where they were talking about how Vince came in and made a deal with Stu Hart to take over the territory and take all the stars that he wanted. Well, what Bret Hart said that Vince stiffed him in pay. And he said he never got one red cent from Vince, and that's why he restarted Calgary Stampede again. But the thing is, he got the people he wanted. He got Bret Hart, he got Owen Hart, Jim Neidhart, and other people he wanted from that territory. So, and honestly, if I was someone's son and they screwed my father money for the deal that they promised, I wouldn't want to be tied with this guy no more. Like, if I found out, yeah, my father tells me I didn't get paid for the deal that Vince told me, I would talk to Vince, tell him I don't appreciate that, and if you don't do anything, I'm done. I don't care. But I'm not going to judge him. I learned to like Bret Hart. He's more respected nowadays. I'm thinking he's kind of like trying to let stuff be bygones, but he kind of still holds grudge. So it was a great episode. This was definitely a lot better than the previous one with Championship Wrestling from Florida, and maybe a little bit better than the AWA one. But I wish they would. Yeah, I do love the stories and the pranks they tell. I was laughing through pretty much all these episodes. I would laugh because they tell these funny pranks, right? So, yeah, I highly suggest watching this one. Abby, before we take off, let's talk about Dr. D, where he left behind his cup of coffee and someone spiked it with, I guess, LSD, and he was tripping, and then no one would answer who did it or how much, so his wife was making cookies, and he took laxatives in those cookies and sent it to the boys, and it looked like Bret Hart ate one of those cookies because he said, I thought it was the hot dog. And he said it ever since then he wouldn't eat a hot dog after that. But if he got really sick, I can kind of understand that. But that was funny that those are pranks. You can't really do those pranks nowadays without any repercussions. So, trying to think what else. It's a really good episode. I highly suggest watch this one. But I wish they had more of a story about Calgary Stampede. And same thing with the AWA, and the same thing with the CWF, aka Championship Wrestling from Florida. I wish they would. I'd like the stories and, like I said, the pranks, but I want to know about the territory. So, I mean, that's where I had to give it to the WWE documentaries because, yeah, they'll have to talk about stories and pranks, but they also talk about the history behind that territory. So, it's not bad, but I can understand they only have an hour while WWE can go as long as they want on these documentaries. So, trying to think. Talked about Andre. Oh, they talked about Bad News Brown being in there and causing a lot of problems for the company where he was using the fork all the time. And he would get suspended from the board, from the sports board. But he was a heel. That's what he's supposed to do. But I don't remember him ever doing that when he was in the WWF. I guarantee Vince said you can't do that here. But yeah, like I said again, highly suggest watch this one. I've been watching these on YouTube. I've been paying for these, and mainly I'm okay. I'd rather pay $2 to have them in my library than try to watch a bootleg version that looks like crap or the audio sounds like crap. So, yeah, you guys have a good day, and I'll talk to you later.